Over the past 12 months, I have been on 4 different continents, and I've advised over 2,000 CEOs on the CEO shift. Over the last 6 to 8 weeks, I've been in the major countries in the GCC working with CEOs. And I have to tell you, of traveling the world, of working through this, of listening to worries, listening to concerns, listening to responses, I've come to a conclusion. And the conclusion is, I don't believe that most of the CEOs in the GCC are prepared to lead their companies out of the recession. Most of the CEOs in the GCC are not prepared to lead their companies out of the recession. And the reason I say that is they're waiting on it to go away. They're sitting simply waiting. I have heard it time and time again of saying, this is going to go away. The difference between a lot of the global leaders right now and the CEOs in the region is they're saying, we don't know what to do. They're trying a lot of things that aren't working, but they're putting attention saying, I've got to do something. And on this side, we're simply waiting. But you know, we're here today because we have a solution. I can tell you exactly what needs to happen, and we're going to dive into it in the CEO shift. Now, the CEO shift is not about a company changing its CEO. They may need to, but that's not what the point is here. It is about 5 shifts that we need to be looking at. And the first shift is a market shift. As Gallup brought out a moment ago, that the world has changed quite a bit. And I kind of want to paint a big picture for you, because inside here, as we look at the market shift, what we're going to see are some alarming things. And here's what we need to look at. Number 1, the world is bigger. As Gallup mentioned a moment ago, it took from the beginning of history till the year 1800 for the world's population to total 1 billion people. It took another 123 years till 1923 for the world's population to reach 2 billion. My grandmother was born in 1920. She has watched the population clock of the world go past 2 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion, 5 billion, 6 billion, and inshallah, if God gives her a few more years, she's going to actually see it go to the 7 billion mark. In her lifetime, she's going to watch 5 billion people be added to the earth. 5 billion, and it took up until her lifetime to get 2 billion. Now, we should be asking a question as leaders right now. Every CEO should be stopping right now and simply saying, what does that mean for me? Because the exponential growth of history means something. I like to call it a phrase called peopleization. The era that we are living in today should be defined by people. Peopleization. More people on the earth are here now than ever before. Now, are you ready for this? In the next 14 years, we will add another 1 billion people. In the next 14 years, we will add 1 billion people. But let's break that down. Since we're in Dubai right now, let's break this down for Dubai. Let's think about what does that mean from Dubai's perspective. It is the equivalent of adding a Dubai to the map every 11 days. We are growing at the rate globally right now to add Dubai again every 11 days for 14 years. You thought Dubai's population was growing well in the 2000s, but can you imagine a new Dubai every 11 days? The world is getting bigger. Not only is the world getting bigger, the world has become Eastern. 81% of the world lives in an emerging market. 81% is currently living in an emerging market, whereas 19% lives in the developed world. But it's interesting. We keep looking to the West for our answers and our solutions. Have you ever thought about what happens while the West is sleeping? Think about this for a moment. Have you ever thought about what happens while the West is sleeping? The entire rest of the world is working. So every night when the West goes to bed, the rest of the world is working. The developed countries are growing by 2 people a minute. The emerging markets are growing by 151. 151 people. So as we're sitting here as business leaders, we're looking, we're going, the world is bigger, the world is Eastern. In addition to that, the world is urban. Currently, right now, 52% of the world lives in a city. 52%. 1/5 of the world's GDP, okay, comes out of the top 10 cities of the world. 1/5 of the world's GDP comes out of the top 10 cities. The cities are the new place. Every single second, 2 people move from the rural countryside into the city. And in addition to that, the world is poor. And I'm not speaking of the economic recession here. 1 out of 6 people in the cities of the world, about 1.2 billion people, live on less than $2 a day. Less than $2 a day. And as a business leader, we sit here and we look at our domestic markets, where we are in the comfort areas at home. And here's one of the issues that are going on in the GCC. We're still attempting to attract the entire world to us rather than figuring out how do we go to the entire rest of the world. Think about it. Just across this body of water here is over 3 billion people. And we're trying to figure out, how do you come here? We're not going to survive that way. We have to make a market shift. If we want to get out of the recession, we have to make a market shift from our own geography and begin to look to the other part of the world. So we have a market shift. In addition to that, we have a growth shift. I remember in 6th grade jumping in Mr. Montgomery's station wagon. Okay, I grew up in Charleston, Illinois, 3 hours south of Chicago. Now, the town I grew up in, okay, was small. Okay, very classical, small Midwestern America. Okay, our tallest building in town was 5 stories, and we had one of those. Okay, so all of a sudden in 6th grade, for being good students, we had the chance to go to Chicago. So here we are, we're getting a Mr. Montgomery's station wagon, myself and a group of our friends, and we headed up to Chicago. And we get to Chicago, and the very first thing we went to see was we went to see the Sears Tower, and then we were going to see the Chicago Cubs play. And we get to the Sears Tower, and I remember jumping out of his station wagon, looking at the Sears Tower going, oh my goodness. Unbelievable, the height. I walked into the lobby of the Sears Tower, and it was taller. The lobby was taller than the tallest building in my hometown. And we got on the elevator, and we went up to the observation deck. And I walked out on the observation deck, and this happened to be one of the days where there were low clouds. And I remember standing there looking down on Chicago through these broken clouds thinking, this must be what it feels like to be God. Looking down on this. This logged in my head. At that time, the Sears Tower was the tallest building in the world. And this logged in my head as, this is it. So I continued living with the Sears Tower as the tallest building in the world. And until the year 2000, it was. In the year 2000, 4 out of the 5 buildings that were over 100 stories were in the U.S. Today, 15 of the 19 tallest buildings in the world are outside the U.S. Growth has been redefined. We need to make a growth shift. And I remember moving to Dubai. When I moved here, the Burj Dubai was 97 stories tall. And I lived in the Burj residences. The Sears Tower was taller. But I remember watching as the Burj went up, and I remember the day that it passed the Sears Tower. And I remember sitting there and thinking, oh my goodness, this is unbelievable. As I continued to watch this building grow and grow and grow, and began to learn that growth has changed. Growth is no longer what it once was. As CEOs, as leaders, we have to redefine what growth means for us. In addition to that, we need to change what causes our growth.